Hello to those who are joining us right at 2 p.m. We're going to let some of you all let the attendance sort of level out, and then we will get started on our panelist discussion, which we really wanted to be a conversation. So if you want to speak, raise your hand. And I can unmute you. If you want to ask a question, you can do so in Q&A. You can also do so in chat. And we do have Jeff Gallant here from Affordable Learning Georgia, who will be the moderator. So looking at the chat and Q&A and letting me know if something is going awry, hopefully nothing does. So I'll turn on my video and we'll get started. Hey, y'all. So I'm Joy Woodson. I am in charge of marketing communications for Galileo. And this session today is about advocating for Galileo and lifelong learning. Our panelists are from our Galileo Ambassadors group. And I'll talk briefly about that in this presentation, in this discussion. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the outline for today, we're going to go over briefly the Galileo Ambassador Committee, and then we'll jump right into our panel discussion. Next slide. Next slide. So we created the Galileo Ambassador Committee a couple of years ago during the pandemic with the overall goal to increase usage of Galileo, especially in our K-12 areas in rural Georgia. And I could say all counties outside of Metro Atlanta, to be honest. Next slide. And so we gathered a group of initial ambassadors, and this was the tactics. These were the tactics that we were going to be working on. Conference attendance and speaking. Some of our conference attendees from our core audience groups had waned, and so we wanted to find ways to increase that. Promotional items may sound like something small, but thinking through, should it be key rings? Should it be notepad? Should it be book bag? Should it be, someone has to decide. And so oftentimes I will ask the committee for their input on promo items and then I order them. And then also when we have the Galileo survey, I look towards the committee to help send it out, increase participation among, in their universe for those that are responding to the survey. They also help decide who is the honoree for the Ambassador Award each year. And then in particular, we are also focused on K-12 engagement. Next slide, please. So now we'll go ahead and get started with our panel discussion. Next slide. Our speakers today include Tina Graham. She's from Henry County Schools, a media specialist there. Heather, stop me if I am mispronouncing your name. Hold on, making you a co-host. Making Ben a co-host. Hey, Rachel, glad you're able to jump in. Making you a co-host and making Tina a co-host. So now everyone should have co-host abilities, which enables you to turn on your video and to speak at will. So as I was saying, we have Tina Graham from Henry County Schools, Heather Morin from Lowndes. Okay, from Lowndes County Schools, Ben Mullis from Oconee Fall Line Technical College, where he's Director of Library Services, and Rachel Perez, who just bless her, she's actually on maternity leave. And she is still joining us as a speaker. So thank you so much. She is from the Northwest Georgia Regional Library, and she is a Technology Lab Library Class Coordinator. Next slide, please. And so let's just jump right into the first part of this discussion. the good. And I just want sort of our panelists to jump right in if you have answers to these questions, because the goal of this presentation is to give people some of the wins that you all have experienced, as well as some of the challenges you've had, and then ways you've been able to get buy-in. So what kind of positive feedback have you gotten overall about Galileo? Anyone can jump in there.
Well, Joy, this is Heather Morin, and I work down in Lowndes County Schools. And so, of our 11 schools down here in Lowndes County, we're glad to have Galileo. It is a great, reliable resource, one that we don't have to worry that when our students choose to use it as part of their research process, we know that it's going to give us quality results, things that the students can use, and we don't have to worry about just basically the reliability of it. And I have probably been in the library for 20 years before I moved in the position that I'm in now, and taught English before. And Galileo has always been my go-to resource. And I'll just share what a win that I have with Galileo. One of the pieces of feedback that I get from teachers from time to time is that when students get to Galileo, sometimes it's very overwhelming, just because there is so much to look at. And as novice researchers, they don't always know exactly where to go. So when I moved in a position where I was in charge of our Clever platform, I took the express links that you can get from specific databases and built things built into Galileo. And I share those express links with the exact group of students who need those the most. So for instance, there's Britannica Elementary, Britannica Middle, and Britannica High. And there are lots of examples, but this is just the easiest. So I took the express link for Britannica Elementary and I dropped it in our Clever, and I pushed it out to every one of our elementary school students and teachers, so that if they know that they need an encyclopedia type resource, they can go directly to Clever, click on Britannica, and it's going to take them right there without having to figure out where they need to go from there. Because for littles, a lot of times the fewer clicks that you can give them, the better it is. So that's been a big win for us, was my taking the time to do that. And I've done that with a number of the resources in Galileo, along with, of course, adding the link directly to Galileo.
Tina, did I see you raise your hand? Do you have
it's so funny. I'm actually at a school right now presenting, so I'll take a second. They're making an announcement.
Okay. Ben, did you want to talk about any sort of positive feedback or wins that you've gotten at the technical college?
Totally. So our experience is a little bit different than the K-12. Our students are very practical. So the idea of the bento search has given us very good feedback, because a lot of our instructors will say, okay, you need 2 scholarly articles, an ebook, and your textbook. So they know exactly what they're looking for and the types of resources. So that bento search has been a game changer. I know it's somewhat divisive, but it's been a great win for us. And I know a specific database that we use a lot is the prep step for community colleges to do test prep and everything. And so I always point that out when I do these. I do a TEAS nursing study guide session before the test is offered. And one of my students said she had failed before, but after she used the prep step TEAS study guide stuff, she passed with flying colors and got into the nursing program. So that was a huge win. I will forever remember that.
That does sound like a huge win. Tina, did you want to jump in? Go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I'm at a school actually presenting for an ELA workshop in our county. And so I just presented on Galileo some digital literacy tools that are available to our teachers. And one thing that positive feedback that our teachers have used, as you said before, Ben, is the bento search. Most students, the first thing they want to do is go to Google. So we've redirected them to go to Galileo, and that bento search allows them to put in their topic, and then it does give them the articles, the ebooks, an actual PDF. But what I really like, and the teachers were just amazed, some that did not know, but the students like, is the tools that are embedded in Galileo. It will cite your source for you, so they can use the tools on the side when they find an article, and it will cite it ALA, MLA, or let's say Chicago Turabian, whatever form of citation guide they need. And also it allows the student to save the article and send it. We use Google Drive here, send it to your Google Drive. So therefore they can build a folder and they can save those articles, and you can email them to yourself, but building it and sending it right to your Google Drive is so helpful for our students that are doing projects. And then I will say the positive feedback is the different databases. If they're doing a History Day project, which is big here in Georgia, they can go to the history reference database, or they can go to the literary reference database if they're doing a ELA English project. So that's some of the positive feedback that I've gotten from our district. And we have over 50 schools represented today.
Thank you for that. Rachel, did you want to jump in and tell us either positive feedback, a win, or how Galileo is mostly used at your library? You are a public librarian.
Yes, absolutely. I am the class coordinator at the Northwest Georgia Public Library, the Dalton-Whitfield County branch in Dalton, Georgia. What we use for Galileo are the lifelong learning tools. So besides research, we have been able to use the resume builder with Galileo, which has been extremely helpful, especially whenever there are digital literacy gaps within our patrons in Dalton, Georgia, which is rural Georgia. That tool in particular is extremely helpful, as well as with the Galileo database. The search engine is very helpful for the research that has been done for the Whitfield County Remembrance Project. So that project in particular is working on memorializing anyone who has been lynched in the community, to be able to memorialize them in an honorable way. They have used Galileo. I've been able to help the people within the project to search, and they've been able to find 2 other individuals to be able to be honorably memorialized within the project, and that has been with Galileo's search engines. And so from our public library standpoint, it goes beyond K through 12, as learning never stops and it continues on. And we've gotten a positive research with how easy it is, even if you haven't gone to school in 5 years, a year, to 20 years out.
I love to hear that that lifelong learning. Galileo is here for Georgia residents from the beginning all the way through high school, first jobs, higher ed and education that people are receiving. So I like to hear that people are using it for not only your standard research projects, but also, in their lives, inside their lives. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you all have had. Next slide. And at first this slide said the bad, and then I was like, you know what? Nothing's bad. Let's just call it the not so good. So some of the challenges that you all have had. First question here, what has been your biggest challenge as a librarian? And this doesn't necessarily have to be about Galileo, because we're building up to what is it about Galileo that could help you with some of those pain points, right? So what has been your biggest challenge as a librarian? Anyone can jump in.
Oh, this is Heather. Probably my biggest challenge when I was in the library was getting buy-in from teachers to be willing to bring their classes to the library always, because they're just, everybody is just so short on time. And, you know, I would try to do things like bring your kids to the library when you're teaching your research unit, and I'll teach the technology and you teach the content. We can teach the writing together, like the citation process. And so a lot of times, you know, it would take a lot of showing up at their PL meetings or their planning time, or like I would always try to keep coffee in the little kitchen area in the library, so they knew that when they brought their classes, that was going to be right there, that they could have some too, or keep candy on my desk, or whatever the little tricks of the trade are. But time is probably the biggest thing for me, is teachers willing to give up chunks of their time.
Yeah, I find that to be, I'm not a teacher, but my mom is a teacher in 8th grade, social studies, head of her 8th grade, I guess, cluster, or whatever it's called inside the school. And time is one of the biggest things she talks about, because for K-12 teachers, their days start super early and then they don't end when the bell ends at the end of the day.
Right.
They end like at 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7, sometimes later than that. That she's telling me I'm just getting in from school. I'm like, what time is it? You know,
Right.
6:30. So time is definite challenge. And I did see someone in the chat, Dana Casper, mentioned that the biggest challenge as a librarian is want of more funding for electronic resources. Anyone else, please type into the chat. Let us know what some of your challenges are. Ben, what do you find to be the biggest challenge for either you as a director, or that you see or hear from the librarians that are on your staff?
We definitely struggle with that initial buy-in from our teachers and our students, because once they get into Galileo and they see all of the cool services that we can offer them, they're all about it. But it's getting that first step, getting them to just take that first step to say, hey, I need some help. I think the library can help me. So it's really kind of getting our name out there of, we want to help, trying to create that friendly environment, which I think we do a pretty good job of. But we're never, and I know we're never going to capture every single student, but it's just, we know the value of the library, you know, all of us in this room, but our students just don't see it. But once they see the light, we know that they'll get the help that they need. So it's just getting them there.
And this isn't on the slide, but what you said made me think back to what Deborah Kennedy was talking about in her presentation earlier this morning about adult literacy, and it being something that really starts in the beginning, you know, when children are young, but also that the sort of truest determining factor of a child's or person's literacy levels is their parents' educational background, you know, and those parents are there at technical colleges, right? Got a lot of parents, got a lot of different kinds of students that you are trying to reach. What have you done to try to make the library as open as you can? Because they got to get there before they can use Galileo.
Right. So we've tried all sorts of different hours, because a lot of our students work full time. And so we've tried evening hours, we've tried Friday hours, but the problem with that is they still are not coming. We advertise all that. The biggest success that we've had is partnering with our student life folks and coordinators and doing fun events in the library. Like, I host a March Madness bracket every year, and we do banned book weeks, and I've taken a page out of my public library coworkers and done blind date with a book, some of those classic, adult programming. And so we've seen a pretty good response with that.
Okay, excellent. Someone's gonna have to tell me later about this what'd you say, blind date? Did I just hear it
Yeah,
wrong?
blind date with a book. You wrap
I
up
did.
5 or 6 different books and give them a little speed dating profile, and
That's so
people check
cool.
them out. It's a lot of fun.
What about you, Rachel? Uh, what has been your biggest challenge as a librarian?
Yes, I believe my biggest challenge would be just reminding our patrons of everything that there is available. I am a person who comes from Kentucky, so our the resources that we are offered in the Kentucky libraries are different than the Georgia libraries. I believe that the Georgia libraries are very unique with the Galileo initiative, and because of that, I think that just reminding patrons about what there is our most difficult challenge, because the resources are all available, but it almost seems as if whenever patrons come in, they become overstimulated with all the new or the existing resources that there are. So it's just reminding them, like, hey, this is everything that your library card has to offer.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Tina, did you want to let us know what is one of your biggest challenges as a librarian?
Okay, so it's great. Today I'm getting a good eye opener meeting with our secondary ELA teachers in English and language arts, and actually we have social studies teachers here. One of the biggest challenges that we would see is, we know what Galileo has. There's ebooks on there. There's all sorts of resources for them. Is making sure that information is out there. And I think the challenge is maybe, and I know we do a great job at showing the information and modeling it, but more videos. We had a quick little 2-minute video that we shared about Galileo, and that was an eye-opener for some of our teachers that were in my training this morning that I did. So I will say the biggest challenge for me is and I'm going to go with teachers, is them not knowing the resources that are there. So I went back to the basics and explained to them, it's from the university system. This is something that is used at, public, all the way up to academic and school libraries. So for me, that's the challenge, is just getting the information out there. And I think how Galileo could assist us more is giving us I love, I had a poster from one of them from a different conference that I was at with you, Joy, and it was the bento search. Continue to give us small aids and bookmarks that tell what Galileo does. Those were so helpful, because then that helps you when you present it, and they're going to look at it and say, oh, it's a virtual library. Oh, it has this. I wasn't aware. So that's helpful. If you all will continue to give us those resources, that would be great.
And yeah, Tina, branching off of that, how do you all think that Galileo can do a better job of assisting you with the challenges that we just spoke about? I mean, a lot of times when I go out to talk about Galileo, um, I could have a whole group of teachers, and sometimes someone that's been a teacher for a while hasn't known that Galileo has been updated over the pandemic, which then says to me they haven't used it in 5 years, and that's how you're like, "Wow, the pandemic has been that long?" 4 or 5 years, and that was like a gut punch when I was talking to that teacher. Or, they are got too much to do, don't have enough time to figure out what's new and what's happening, and really looking toward librarians or looking toward Galileo to help them have the sort of one-stop shop, come up with something, help them with the curriculum, and then introduce it into the classrooms. And for faculty, I've not actually had any discussions with faculty but I have been a student at higher ed, and I'll just say I only remember once or twice having Galileo mentioned on my um what is it called when you first register for the class and they give you all the stuff. Someone help me. What's it called?
Syllabus,
A
on your
syllabus?
syllabus.
Yes, the syllabus. And so there's only been a couple of times where Galileo has been mentioned. And one of those times I worked at Galileo and they wanted us to buy a resource that was free on Galileo. And so then I told the professor, and I don't know how that went over, like, we don't have to buy this. But what can we do to help assist with some of those challenges? So promotional items, and like Tina was mentioning, the bento poster. I got a lot of them. If you all would like one, send me an email. But what else, could we help and do a better job to assist you?
I think this is Heather again. One of the things that I think would be helpful to me and is if I had specific up-to-date training materials that I could use with my media specialists, and then have the expectation that they'll take the training I provide for them and then redeliver it at their schools to their teachers, make them improve their skill in their library when they're helping students. And I know Galileo has a lot of resources. I guess maybe make them packaged more up to date, or I think somebody mentioned some videos. I would love to see just some little quick commercials that maybe we send out on our email blasts, or however we get the word out, that we can turn around and share. Because, like, for instance, this summer I did, this is kind of going into your next question, but like, what are some ideas we've done to get buy-in in a classroom? This year, our school district is going through our Cognia accreditation. And the last time we had our accreditation, the section that we did the poorest on was the technology section. And that hurt my feelings because I've always thought that our district was really strong in technology. But as it turned out, when they were coming in to look for technology, they were looking for how students were using technology, not how teachers were using technology. So that meant we kind of had to have a little bit of a mind shift. So we took the verbs out of the three technology objectives on the Cognia evaluation instrument, and we created a program that this coming up year will be the third year we've had in place. We call the 3 C's. And it is where we have teachers design lessons where students create, curate, and collaborate on projects. And so this summer, I taught a couple of 3 C's professional learning sessions with my teachers. And Galileo is one of the resources that I shared with them, because I said, your kids are very quickly going to go to Galileo, are going to go to Google and do research. But like, if we can get them to where you're going to say, we're going to do research and we're going to curate some information about this unit of study that we've had going on, and I want your resources to come from Galileo, that's going to be the biggest game changer, is if that's what we require as K-12 people, because I think at the forefront of everything, with all of the information available online and now AI, that we really have to be more diligent in teaching students to evaluate information more critically. And our biggest advantage is that we offer Galileo, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of that for us.
Yeah, you mentioned something about videos, and many of you all may know that we do have a YouTube channel. It may not be getting at what you're talking about specifically, but I did hear in one of the recent conferences that I attended that the teachers and media specialists couldn't actually access our YouTube videos due to the controls, permissions at their school district level. And so when she told me that, I was like, You know, it's like, okay, so all the videos that we have on there, you can't use them in the way that I thought that people could use them. And so now it's thinking through another way to get videos to districts where those controls are there, because then the students can't necessarily open YouTube and look at our videos. And so what other kind of way to get those videos to educators that maybe doesn't involve that kind of third party challenge?
Something that might be helpful is if we shared that, because and I don't know what level of expertise everybody has in their districts with their Google or their controls on the back end for what they allow or don't allow for students. But on our end, we have the ability to either add or remove channels for students and for teachers, or make channels available across our district within YouTube. So that's something that's more of a manual process. So we have to go into each channel and allow those. So for instance, we've started doing a lot of stuff with Canva in our district, since so awesome. And so, but they have all kind of really great tutorial videos. And I had been encouraging teachers and students to use them. And it was not until the summer that I realized that the Canva channel was not allowed for our district, but I had the ability to go in and allow it, which I did, but I wasn't looking at it from that standpoint until it was an issue. So maybe we just need to make everyone aware that, these resources are available, and make sure that you have them in channels that are allowed across your district, for that reason.
That's thank you for that. That's a good thing for me to note. Ben or Rachel, did you want to tell us any way you think that Galileo could assist you with the biggest challenges that either you have or that you see that your patrons have? Tina, I see your hands raised. You can go ahead.
Okay, super quick. I just wanted to piggyback on what Heather was just talking about. And I see Mr. Palmer actually put it in the chat. When we go into Galileo, there's a section that says resources or like help guides or something. There's some presentations in there, but one of them is before Galileo was re-imaged, I would say. So basically, I think if we could pull, because I'm one of the counties that blocks YouTube, and it's a filtering system, so no one will get access to it unless we pull it from home, because I tried to pull it from home and load it to my Google Classroom, and sure enough, we could not view it at school. Only way I could view it is I use my own Wi-Fi from my phone. So maybe if we could pull a couple of the helpful videos that are not too long, maybe 10 minutes, that just gives a basic overview of Galileo, and put it in that help guide in a different format, we would be able to see it. Because I think that's the one thing is that a takeaway that I got today in my workshop dealing with some of our teachers was they just didn't know all of the resources and what Galileo would actually do. Although I've presented now the students to know, because I've met with their students, but they were not as familiar with it. And it was because I've pulled from your video. So if we could just get them posted in those resources area, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you. Ben or Rachel, did you want to chime in before we move to buy-in?
Yes, absolutely. I believe that a way that Galileo would definitely help the public library systems would be offering or reminding the library systems about the professional development opportunities that there are. So for example, for staff day, having Galileo come in so that all staff can be reminded as well as be taught how to use Galileo, so that everyone at the library can then tell all of the patrons about the great resource that Galileo is.
Thank you.
I would just kind of say much of the same thing of just updating the training so that we can pull it in and send it out to our faculty and staff and the students. I know I've used it in the past, cut it up some and sent out just little snippets, because I know my students are, and myself, our attention spans are getting much shorter.
All right, thank you for that. And Russell Palmer is in the audience. He is our Assistant Director over Support Services. And so all of these are very helpful things for the work that the dev team, as we call them, the dev team and the support staff work on. So we're going to move on to the next part of this and then get to any questions that we have seen in the chat, Q&A, or anyone that wants to raise your hand. So let's go to the next slide, please. So actionable items, getting buy-in. And this is a big question, but hopefully something that gives our audience ideas as to how to get buy-in from either patrons, which includes students, it includes adults, or those frontline communicators, the other librarians, the co-workers, and your colleagues. So what are some ideas you suggest or that you've used to get buy-in from your library, classrooms, or community with using Galileo? Who would like to go first?
I'll just say one quick buy-in, and I'm going to be very, this year I'm going to be a little bit more active with it, is when I'm working with students or teachers, and we're definitely going to tweet some things out today, or Twitter has changed to X, I should say, or put it on Instagram, is that we're going to highlight who's using it at our school. And I do know I put Galileo, we have a digital newsletter. I basically pull a different database in Galileo, and I'll share it each month with parents and students, so that goes out. But I think putting the information out there of who's using it is a task that I'm going to do, and actually highlighting them in a digital format as far as on some type of social media thing, so they can feel praised. So I think that's a way that I'm going to highlight it to get more buy-in.
I like that idea. I think people love to see, love to be recognized. And if they are doing something that can be repeated where others can learn from it, that's great to share it out, especially in social media. I actually struggle in Galileo with trying to determine the best social media platform for me to send information out because our users are so varied. And then all of the volatility inside of social media platforms. You know, I really no longer can use Twitter/X. Facebook really doesn't have all of the end users in it. It doesn't have all the students. The students are on Instagram. But then I think, well, what am I going to put on Instagram? You know, and then there's Threads. And then I also, coming in the next fiscal year, we will be opening, as everyone follow us, we will be having a LinkedIn account for Galileo, another way for us to meet the frontline communicators. So that would be a way to reach out to librarians and teachers. But yeah, I do struggle with what social media platform is best for what type of end user. But it's great to see that you will be giving that a whirl with highlighting how people are using Galileo and who is using it. Anyone else want to tell us a way or an idea that you would suggest for getting buy-in, or a way that you have been able to get buy-in?
Sure, Joy. I've used live workshops or like live demos in a scenario like this where we're all online with these online classes, as most of our institutions have shifted to. And I know that's been somewhat successful. So then students can ask questions, immediately, just like they were, in the library. But I would love to see that from Galileo, because it's one thing if your librarian tells you that, but it's another when the person who made the thing tells you that.
So reverse for me. So roll back. So what would be the thing that Galileo would be doing in that scenario?
So basically, someone like Russell, who is a Galileo expert, would come in, and we would have a scheduled time to have a webinar like this. And he would just explain one concept of how to do a bento search and the benefits of that for my class of, 30 students or something like that.
Gotcha, gotcha. I
Uh,
actually just gave Russell the ability to talk. You can talk.
Hey, you guys you're probably sick of my multitude of chat. So, no, I like that idea, Ben, and we try to do as much as that and I had the idea today in another session that, and actually I was thinking of you, Ben, when I said it, because I love the concept that you all have done at TCSG with your oh gosh, what are you calling them? Sorry. Brain
The office
failure.
hours.
Office hours. Like, obviously we don't have the staffing to do that routinely, but we could do it occasionally, certainly. So also I had my follow-up question with that was, where is the best place to target that to get the most bang for your buck? Because I was thinking about, we honestly have never done a lot of outreach to students. I mean, I don't know, that complicates our role if we get into that. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it or anything, but it's something we've never really, we've always had the librarians between us and students, and I think that's kind of by design. But I don't object to the idea of working with students. It's just we got to find a comfortable place to do that. I'd say the other thing is, I've been working a lot with the bento customization lately, and I've done some training on that. And I think faculty is a great place to target that bento customization piece, because basically, and I'll be showing this in the 4 o'clock session, is they can create a whole bento view where they can have, and this would work great with K-12, where they could create a whole view for nursing. They could create a whole view for auto shop or business or whatever they wanted to. They could create bentos specifically for those needs. Just on the fly as a user. So yeah, I mean, I feel like those types of things would be great to show, because they're not hard to use. They're scary when you don't know what you're doing, right? But yeah, just thinking about where to target that, I think faculty is certainly an interesting place we could work too. So just throwing that out there. And on the school librarian side of that, and I'll shut up in a second, sorry. The school librarians, I had a lot welled up here. The school librarian side of that. So this is a bridge I like to try to work to build with a little bit of training that I have the time to do. And that is, man, if I can get teachers in the room, in addition to media specialists, there's so much value. There's always value working with you all directly, but if I can get teachers in the room too, and I've done that a few times, I feel like the value goes up because the teachers are connecting, and just the same way Ben is describing, when they can talk to someone who it's coming, like you guys are talking about it all the time. You're doing a great job of advocating for it. But again, that other level of support for it, coming from those of us that work on it, create it, work with it every day, that's helpful too. So I'll shut up now. Thanks.
Thank you, Russell, for that input. Definitely appreciate it, and want to hear more about Galileo and in our feedback session. He is leading that at 4 p.m. And I think not sure who has not told me about their buy-in ideas, but if anyone else wants to jump in, I believe Rachel may not have heard her idea. I'm not sure about Heather, but if anyone wants to jump in, go ahead.
I was going to say that one of the things that I do with when I was in a school with my faculty is there are always teachers who are working on a graduate degree while they're teaching. And so I always try to do workshops throughout the year, like stay after school, and would say, hey, if you're needing some help with research, or let me show you how you can do all your citations easier or find the resources that you're looking for. And I always share Galileo with them, because I've always been a big believer that when teachers, they'll figure out how to use things when it helps them personally along with professionally. So like when I teach Canva, and people are always like, oh, I could use this to make birthday invitations or my Christmas cards or whatever. And you can, and that's great. And then when they realize how easy it is, then their brain starts really turning as, oh, I can use this in my classroom for this. And so I feel like those teachers they're working on those graduate degrees, they need a lot of help, because most of them are doing them virtually. So they don't have a in their face person that they can go to help. So I'm always remind them that, I'm media specialists for their students, but I'm theirs as well. And so I always don't mind helping them doing that kind of research as well.
Thank you. Rachel, what are some ideas that you suggest or that you have for getting buy-in at the public library? And maybe you could talk about getting buy-in not just from patrons, but uh, colleagues. I don't know, and I just thought about this, but any one of us could talk about that, but getting buy-in from the other librarians. There's two sides to it, but you can talk about either side. Rachel.
Yes, absolutely. For patrons, it would be creating more class programming that specifically center classes on how to utilize Galileo. And for the staff or for the librarian side, it would definitely be going back to a point that I touched on, which would be offering staff development, because at the library we have staff from all levels of education, whether that be associates, whether that be high school, whether that be masters and doctorate levels. So what I would suggest would be having or encouraging public libraries to contact Galileo to come in and have a workshop for their staff development day.
And we'll move on to the last slide, which is really just my information. Want to now open it up to anything that was in the chat that were questions or call outs or anything in the Q&A that we wanted to answer aloud. Jeff, I know, let me see. No open questions. Okay. He said this question was answered live.
Yep, this was it was more of a comment. We shared it in the chat and discussed it there.
Okay.
And Julie, just to follow on that comment, that last comment, I added it to the chat, but we're just to let everyone know, we're always glad to, time permitting, we do as much of it as we possibly can to do staff development days. Either myself, Joy has helped out with those, virtually or face-to-face. We've had some very good virtual ones. That's easy. If I happen to be in North Georgia one day and then and have to go to Deep South Georgia the next day, sometimes it's nice to be able to come in virtually. But we've had, I think, really good success with the ones that we've been able to do. So we welcome those requests anytime. You can reach out to me or Joy directly if you like.
Yeah, you can always reach out to us. We are a small staff, despite having such a large footprint. So we can't get everywhere at every school district all the time, but we are always want to see who needs us, who would like to have a presentation, and if we can, we do. And one of the other things that we try to do is to get to the conferences where we know our audience, our frontline communicators are going to be, like being present at the Georgia Library Media Association Summer Institute, being present and presenting at the Georgia Libraries Conference in the fall, going to the Social Studies Conference that I think it also happens in the fall. And we may be speaking there as well. So we try to go where you all are, but we are always open to ideas. I'm always open to ideas on how would be best to reach out to everyone. And I would love to be able to share out any of the wins, any of the engagement, any of the curriculum work that you all have done, not just our ambassadors, but all librarians have done. And I would love to be able to share those out or share them on our website or share them on our social media, because again, getting back to what Tina said, I think when you highlight people and the work that they are doing, then that in some way incentivizes coworkers and end users to do whatever it was that was presented in that video. Like, oh my God, that is so cool. I should do that in my classroom. So I'd love for us to have a lot more of that user product that we can put out on our website and social media. We have about 5 more minutes, and if there's any sort of last things that our panelists would like to mention that I have not asked about, or that you wanted to say and maybe thought about later, please go ahead and give us sort of your final thoughts about advocating for Galileo. I will move through the list. Let's just start with Heather. Their final thoughts on advocating for Galileo and lifelong learning.
I guess I would just say that it is something that's worth taking the time to maybe getting out of the library and being where the teachers are and where the students are, being in their classroom and talking it up, because I think it's just one of those things they just need to hear about it on the regular for them to become as familiar and maybe not intimidated by it, just because it's kind of something that becomes their go-to resource. So that's only going to happen by hearing about it on the regular.
Rachel, give us your final thoughts on advocating for Galileo.
I will continue to advocate for Galileo because it is a very accessible and useful tool. So I will continue to advocate, to tell patrons, not only patrons, but my fellow coworkers about Galileo because it's incredible.
And Ben, want to give us some final thoughts on advocating for Galileo, how you advocate, what you want to do in the future, thoughts about Galileo?
Sure. I would just say don't get discouraged when you're not seeing fruit from your efforts, because even if you're not seeing it, we know that it is making a big difference in students and all of Georgians' lives. And so it's, like Heather said, it's vitally important that we keep fighting the good fight, as they say.
And then last but not least, Tina.
I just want to say I applaud Galileo for where it started and where it's gone, where it's at right now and where we are going as a whole. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource for our entire state that covers all academic areas and for the public. Keep the resources and the information coming. It's a wealth of information. It was something that I will definitely continue to advocate for in my district. And I think doing those hands-on things, this was the first time I've been in my district 17 years that we've actually, we do trainings at our schools, but to have, they pulled a couple of media specialists that use Galileo, and it's actually 2 of us today. And so the people, our sessions had 50, and I did 4 this morning. So we are reaching a lot of our teachers and really digging in and showing them the ins and out of Galileo and actually having them click on, do a search, and look for things in the different databases. So I just applaud you all for the information, and they were just shocked at, the different tools that are there. So as a techie person, you guys did an awesome job. We took them to Encyclopedia Britannica and showed them the different levels because we have students at different levels and how they can pull, video resources, pictures, and all of that. So I will continue to share the information, but I think doing hands-on, this training was so beneficial doing that with our teachers. So I will encourage you, if you are in any capacity of education, is doing hands-on Galileo training and having them open up their laptop and going right in there and showing them. I think modeling is the best thing to do with not only our students, but with our faculty and staff. So thank you.
And I want to just thank everyone. We have reached the conclusion of this presentation. Thank all of our panelists for participating and for being part of our Galileo Ambassadors Committee. If you all are interested in participating in that, or if you have any ideas related to the work that we do in getting the word out about Galileo, please reach out to me. My information is right there. My information is also on our website. And so thank you all for attending and have a good rest of the afternoon.